my all-time favorite places to vacation in the United States is Isla Mirada in the Upper Florida Keys. It's about equidistant, halfway between Miami and Key West. My partner and I go there several times a year, and we have found this resort. It's a small resort. It's about 12 houses nestled in this grove of 600 coconut palms. It is pristine. There's hammocks. You feel like you're the only people there. It's about as paradisical as any place I found in the U.S. And we were there last January for 2 weeks after Christmas, and we started talking about my sister and brother-in-law, who we also love to travel with. And I said, I bet Margaret and Roger would really love this place. I wonder if they'd come down here with us. So I called my sister on the phone, and I told her about it, and she said, yeah, I would love to come, but I don't want to go in the summer when it's really hot. And I said, well, why don't we go in the fall? She said, great. So while we're there, I go into the office, and I talk to Sandra, and I say, Sandra, do you have the Mango House? It's a 2-bedroom oceanfront house. Do you have it available, let's say, the first week of November? She says, yes. I said, put us down. Before we left, I went back in and checked. Sandra, we have the Mango House first week of November, right? She said, I've got you down. What happens is 6 months out, they send you a request for a deposit. 6 months out, nothing came. So I called Sandra and I said, Sandra, do you need a deposit? And she said, for what? I said, for the Mango House, first week of November. She said, I don't have you down. I said, oh, yes, you do. We talked twice when I was there in January. She said, the entire resort is booked for a wedding. I said, we have the first week of November. And she said, well, let me talk to the manager. And so I hung up, and I started thinking about it. We're at an impasse. I wasn't too happy. I wanted something that I had been promised, and that was not what I was being offered. I was at an impasse, and I was a little angry. You remember those stories we tell ourselves about what we see in here that drive our bad behavior? Well, most crucial conversations go awry because it's not that people dislike the content of the conversation, but because they feel the content, even though it's delivered in a very gentle fashion, suggests that there's a malicious intent. How can people feel safe if they feel you're about to harm them? You cannot even utter a helpless good morning without people interpreting it in a negative way. One of the first conditions of safety is mutual purpose. Think about that word mutual for just a moment. And if I ask you to think of a synonym, another word for mutual, most people come up with the word shared. So if we have mutual purpose, we have shared purpose. We care about the same thing. Mutual purpose tells the other person that you're working toward a common objective in that conversation. It tells them that you care about their dreams, their goals, their aspirations, their values, and vice versa. You think they care about yours. We call mutual purpose the entrance condition to dialogue. If I feel we have mutual purpose, I will start dialogue. So you think about mutual purpose. Find a shared purpose, and you now have both a good reason and healthy climate for talking. But how do I know if the safety problem I'm seeing is related to a lack of mutual purpose? Well, it's fairly easy to spot. When we find ourselves at cross purposes, we end up in debate. We start digging in or giving in, and anytime people try to force their opinions into the pool of shared meaning, typically it's because they don't feel safe. They think we're trying to win, they need to do the same thing. Other signs that mutual purpose is at risk include accusations, hidden agendas, circling back to the original topic, defensiveness. There are two crucial questions that we use to help us determine if safety is at risk due to mutual purpose. First of all, do people believe that I care about what's important to them in this conversation? Secondly, do they trust my motives? And I think when purpose goes awry, we need to go all the way back to start with heart. We need to get our heart right. We need to move from what do I really want to what do we really want. I once heard mutual purpose sort of described as, I don't want what we don't want. And I love the way that was presented. I don't want what we don't want. But please remember, mutual purpose is not a skill, it's not a technique. If you truly want to succeed at crucial conversations, you have to genuinely care about what's important to the other people, not just your interests. There has to be mutual purpose. If you go in and you try and compel, you try and push your opinions, that'll become apparent fairly quickly. Dialogue ceases, safety breaks down, back to silence and violence. So let's say we find ourselves in a heated debate because there is clearly a lack of mutual purpose. There's not a misunderstanding here. Contrasting will not do the trick. We need something sturdier for this. And when mutual purpose is at risk, the very best at dialogue, step out of the content for a moment. I want you to think of literally getting out of the pool for just a moment, and they use 4 skills with which to recreate mutual purpose. And if it helps to remember what to do, think of the 4 skills forming the acronym for the word CRIB. Commit to seek mutual purpose, recognize the purpose behind the strategy, invent a mutual purpose, and then finally brainstorm mutual purposes. First step, commit to seek mutual purpose. If we step out of the content, when I commit to seek mutual purpose, I'm calling a timeout. I'm realizing that we're at an impasse, and I'm trying to get the other person to buy in to seeing if we can talk about something that we can both agree on. So it might be a simple question such as, can we take a moment and see if we can find something that we can both agree on? Hopefully, the other person, being a reasonable, rational, decent person, would say yes. So now that I've got their commitment, I'm going to the next skill. I need to recognize the purpose behind the strategy. And if you think about purpose as being what I want, strategy is how I'm going to get there, how often do we get bogged down in strategy and we forget our purpose? We start arguing, here's what I want, well, here's what, and we just dig in and argue strategy, and we lose sight of our purpose. Go back to my keys story. I started thinking after I hung up from Sandra and sort of calmed down, what was my purpose? What was my strategy? What was my purpose? My purpose is I wanted to spend time with my sister and brother-in-law in the Florida Keys. My strategy was that first week in November. So I could have argued strategies. I could have called and I could have debated, but I talked to my sister, called Sandra back and said, Sandra, do you have the last week of October in the Mango House? And she said, yes, and thank you so much. The mother of the bride is a real bear. And I think the beauty and the power of the skills for me is that we both won. There was no compromise. And if you think about the crib skills, creating mutual purpose, it's about a win-win situation. And if you could hardwire this skill, meaning a hardwired behavior says, I don't have to think about it. I get in my car, I put on my seatbelt, I don't think about it. It's a hardwired behavior. If you could hardwire these crib skills, think about having less conflict in your life. Think about having less stress, more collaborative. Think about how you might be viewed in your organization.